Welcome to my YouTube channel, everyone. Today we're going to review Bushido Blade, a 3D weapon-based fighting game developed by Lightweight. Bushido Blade was released in Japan and North America in 1997, and the PAL version was released in Europe in 1998. And I gotta be honest with you, I've never played this game back in the days, but I remember some classmates of mine were quite crazy about it, and I remember it being quite popular in the local video game clubs because of its unique gameplay, that was unlike any other fighting games at the time, with the main focus being the realism. And I guess that's why I kind of kept my distance, it just seemed too weird to me that there were no health meters, no timer, no rounds, I was like, what the hell is that, how do you even play this game, it was just way out of my comfort zone. But recently I've been a little bit nostalgic of those times, and I just felt like playing games that I've never had the chance to play or was purposely avoiding them, and I also wanted to taste that true 1998 gourmet flavor, So I got Bushido Blade, and after like almost 2 decades, it was finally time to face my fears and try the game. So let's jump straight into it. First, the character roster. It's quite small, and the characters don't really have any special abilities, that would make them feel different one from another. Like, for example, in the Mortal Kombat games or the Tekken games. In Bushido Blade, although each character has their own storyline, they are basically the avatars for the weapons that you choose. So basically, you pick a character and then you pick a weapon. And different weapons have different feel to them. Like the bigger weapons feel slower, but they have greater strength and a longer reach. And the smaller weapons are faster, but they have like shorter reach, of course. And just like in real life, any character can use any weapon, but they're allegedly better with certain weapons. But to be honest with you, I've tried different combinations of characters and weapons, and I didn't really feel any big differences. Now, in terms of controls, Bushido Blade is stiffer than the first Tekken game. Personally, to me, it feels very unresponsive and super slow, especially if you play it after games like Mortal Kombat 4, for example, or Soul Blade, games that are really fast-paced, have tight and responsive controls and feel really fluid and flexible. Bushido Blade is exactly the opposite of that, it's definitely the slowest fighting game I've ever played. And on top of that, it has like these really weird inputs for basic moves like jumping, and in general the input system is a bit weird, like it will take you some time to get used to it, and you really need to invest in the game, and learn how to play it. Like even exiting the game is weird. Like you have to press L1, L2, R1, R2, select and start just to exit the game, So I think they could have definitely worked a bit more on the UX and the UI aspect of it, and do some better game testing before releasing it. Moving on to the combat system and the gameplay. Like I mentioned before, it's very different from other fighting games. There are no big combos or big move lists and stuff like that, There's like maximum 3-hit combo you can do in this game, but in Bushido Blade, one hit in the right spot can kill. So it's more about who's gonna deliver the killing blow first. But not all hits kill though. There is like this body damage system, so striking the legs and arms will injure the character, which affects their stance, how they hold the weapon, and also the move list. There are 3 stances available to you with each weapon. Basically, you change the center of gravity, like they call it in the game, which would grant you access to different moves. Bushido Blade has no block, but there is a parry system. But in order to execute it, you really need to read your opponent. So yeah, it's really about reading the opponent, and looking for those openings, to deliver that killing blow. Some other things that the characters can do, you can blind your opponents, by throwing dust in their eyes. And some characters have throwing weapons that can ambush your opponent and give you the advantage. Something that I find really interesting about Bushido Blade is that you can freely run around the fully 3D environments and explore the levels. And the levels are quite big and very unconventional for the time. Like there are obstacles, platforms you can climb on, uneven surfaces and stuff like that. So yeah, like the level design and the layout is very different compared to other fighting games of that era. Maybe Maze the Dark Ages would have some slight similarities because of some very little level interaction going on there, but it's nothing like Bushido Blade. Now let's talk about the game modes in Bushido Blade. First, the story mode, which is basically like the arcade mode in this game. The story is about a 500-year-old secret dojo called the Meikyokan, that trains a secret society of assassins called the Kage, that translates as the shadow from the Japanese. The Kage were once led by a swordsman named Utsusemi and strictly followed the Bushido Code of Honor. But one day, Utsusemi lost his position to Hanzaki, another warrior of the clan, who in turn became the leader of the Kage. Now, somehow, Hanzaki discovered a cursed sword known as Yugiri, that corrupted him and he stopped following the Bushido code. In the story mode, you play as a Kage member that escapes the Meikyokan dojo. And so the dojo sends assassins after you who trap you at the ruins of the Yin and Yang castle, where you need to fight your way out. And you can choose to play as any of the characters in the roster and have different endings because there doesn't seem to be any particular canon to which character was the renegade. What's interesting about the story mode is that you need to follow the Bushido code. Basically, you need to wait until the opponent is ready to fight, don't strike them from the back, and don't throw dust in their eyes, and in general, don't fight dirty, you know, because it will be a dishonorable kill. And the game won't let you to progress within the story after a certain point. So you won't see the ending of your character. But if you follow the Bushido code, you get to play the full story and watch the ending of your character. And there are 2 endings per character. But the second one is too difficult to unlock, but if you have the cheat cartridge, you can watch all the endings there. Up next we have the slash mode, where you need to kill 100 enemies in a row. It's basically kind of like the survival mode in this game. And it feels quite different from the story mode because here you don't need to follow the Bushido code. And you also have unlimited continues, so it's a lot more relaxing to play it. Then we have the POV mode, which is played from a first-person's perspective. It's quite an interesting experiment, to be honest, but I just don't think it really works in a fighting game. And then we have the Link mode, which is basically the 2-player version of the POV mode, but in order to play the Link mode, you need like 2 PlayStation consoles, 2 TVs, and a Link cable, you know, just too much of a hassle, and honestly, I think very few people on this planet have ever played the Link mode. Next we have the training mode, and unfortunately there aren't many options here to help you train. Like you can't make the opponent inactive, you can't watch the move list or anything like that, you know, so it's pretty much useless in my opinion. And of course, lastly we have the VS mode, which is basically the 2-player mode. I didn't have the chance to play it with anyone, but I assume it would be quite fun to play this mode in this game. So what I have to say is that in Bushido Blade, each mode offers something actually different in terms of gameplay. Like each mode feels different, unlike Tekken, for example, where all the modes feel the same because they don't really affect the gameplay that much. Bushido Blade has an interesting package of modes, I would say. I just wish you could unlock the characters from the slash and the story modes, you know, to expand the character roster a bit, you know. Moving on to the presentation, and Bushido Blade, of course, has this beautiful, delicious 5th gen pixel mosaic style 3D graphics, you know, that I'm in love with, and it has some really impressive details for the time as well, like the footprints on the sand, the snow falling, you know, and even the bandages on the characters' injured parts. The design is heavily influenced by the traditional Japan and anime, I would say. Like there are cherry blossom trees, bamboo gardens, traditional Japanese houses, but there are also some modern day locations because the story takes place in the modern times. And the same goes for the costumes. The characters have 2 different costumes each, but different modes allow only one type of costume. Like the traditional costumes are only available in the VS, training, and the POV modes. And in the story and the slash modes, you can only have the modern day assassin costumes. And I just wish it was possible to choose both on any mode, because I prefer the traditional costumes and I wish I could pick them in the story and the slash modes that I play the most. I guess I have a thing for kimonos and flip-flops. But overall, the game looks great. The music is a blend of traditional Japanese music and modern beats. And the tracks actually sound really cool, you know? But unfortunately, the music is very low on volume, and there is no option to adjust it. You know, I just think if the music was a bit louder, it would have given the game a lot more character and attitude. And what's sad is that there is no music in the story mode at all, you know? A mode that could have been a lot more cinematic if it had some music in it. I know it sounds like I'm complaining too much right now, but I just think the music is really important in fighting games. So, my final thoughts. The graphics in Bushido Blade were far from realistic, but the game had realistic gameplay instead, you know, which really separated it from other fighting games of that era, you know, and made it stand out and popular at the time. Looking back, there are some things that could definitely use some extra work, but overall I enjoyed playing it, mostly because of how close the game brings me to the years 1997 and 1998, you know, when gaming was at one of its most exciting periods. So Bushido Blade is kind of like a time machine to me. The game was even successful enough to get a sequel, Bushido Blade 2, which unfortunately was only ever released in Japan and America. Europe never got the PAL version. Now, in terms of the modern era and all the remakes that are happening, I think I would love to see a modern day remake of Bushido Blade. But even more, I would like it to be a sequel, like Bushido Blade 3. And make it a PS5 exclusive or something, because I think a title like that would enrich the PS5 gaming library and give it that variety that it desperately needs. And also, you know, with the modern day technology, the game could have both realistic gameplay and graphics. And so the initial vision for this game would have been complete. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, check out my channel, and until next time.